Trump is back, and in his first week, he's already launched a full-blown political attack on Kamala Harris. Investigations. Policy reversals. Media takedowns. Is this justice or pure revenge? What's unfolding in Washington could change the future of American politics forever. The United States woke up to a political shockwave that no one saw coming. After months of fierce campaigning, intense media battles, and endless speculation, the final results were in. Donald J. Trump had made a thunderous return to the White House. His re-election marked one of the most dramatic comebacks in modern American politics. Crowds gathered in celebration, supporters filled the streets, and political commentators scrambled to digest what had just happened. But as powerful as the victory itself was, what truly dominated the headlines came just hours after Trump's triumphant return. In the heart of Washington, D.C., standing tall before a crowd of thousands at his post-election celebration, Donald Trump delivered a speech that would change the political conversation overnight. His tone was confident, charged with energy, and full of promises about the future of his new term. But then, in the middle of the speech, he paused, looked directly at the cameras, and made a statement that sent ripples through the nation. This administration has unfinished business. We will hold everyone accountable, including Kamala Harris. For a few seconds, there was silence. Then came a wave of gasps, cheers, and stunned reactions from the crowd. Those 17 words set off an immediate media firestorm. News channels interrupted broadcasts. Social media platforms lit up with theories, opinions, and outrage. Hashtags related to Trump and Kamala Harris began trending globally within the hour. Political analysts began dissecting the deeper meaning behind the phrase. It wasn't just a passing comment, it was a deliberate signal, a warning, and perhaps even the beginning of something much bigger. Kamala Harris, who served as vice president under Joe Biden, had long been a polarizing figure. During her tenure, she handled some of the administration's most complex issues, including immigration, border security, and foreign diplomacy. She was a central figure during moments of national crisis and often spoke on behalf of the administration during Biden's absences. While her supporters viewed her as strong and historic, her critics accused her of being ineffective, overly ambitious, and disconnected from key policy outcomes. Among those critics, no one was more vocal than Donald Trump. Throughout Biden's term, Trump repeatedly called out Harris in speeches, interviews, and on social media. He accused her of failing to secure the southern border, mishandling relationships with foreign allies, and pushing what he called radical leftist agendas. Now, back in office, Trump appeared ready to take action. His statement wasn't just symbolic, it was a declaration. Behind the scenes, sources close to Trump began revealing that plans were already in motion. There were reports of internal meetings to audit the previous administration's immigration programs, many of which had been led or heavily influenced by Harris. A special committee was being assembled to investigate billions in federal funding tied to those initiatives. Legal teams were reportedly reviewing public records, speeches, and travel logs. According to insiders, Trump's new administration was looking for inconsistencies, oversights, and any signs of mismanagement. While Trump supporters hailed the move as long overdue accountability, critics saw it as a dangerous escalation. Prominent Democrats took to the airwaves to denounce the targeting of a former vice president. They called it political revenge, a tactic meant to intimidate and silence future challengers. Some legal experts warned that Trump's actions could set a precedent for using federal power to pursue personal political enemies. But none of the criticism slowed Trump down. He remained focused, determined, and unapologetic. Kamala Harris herself eventually broke her silence. In a defiant press conference, she rejected the allegations and accused Trump of weaponizing the government. Her words were sharp, and her tone unshaken. "I have nothing to hide," she said. "This isn't about truth. This is about fear. Fear of strong women. Fear of progress. And fear of accountability for their own failures." Despite the statement, the process had already begun. Policies that had been closely tied to Harris were being overturned. Programs she had launched were being defunded or reassessed. Trump's allies flooded conservative media with talking points aimed at discrediting her past actions and painting her as a symbol of everything that had gone wrong during the previous 4 years. Every move appeared calculated. Every statement pointed to one goal: eliminate Kamala Harris as a political threat. As the days passed, it became clear that this wasn't just a post-election victory lap. This was a strategic campaign of political dismantling. Trump wasn't just returning to office, he was rewriting the legacy of those who had opposed him. And Kamala Harris, once considered a rising star and potential presidential candidate, was now at the center of the most aggressive political backlash in recent history. The message was loud and clear. Trump was back. And this time, he wasn't just aiming to lead, he was aiming to settle scores. To understand the weight behind Trump's bold and direct statement about Kamala Harris, it's important to rewind the clock and look at what led to this moment. During Joe Biden's presidency, Kamala Harris wasn't just a traditional vice president sitting in the background. She was one of the most visible figures in the administration. Biden handed her multiple high-profile and highly controversial responsibilities, many of them seen as political landmines. Immigration reform, border security, voting rights, international relations, even delicate matters involving Central America and Eastern Europe, Harris was at the center of them all. She traveled the world representing the U.S., met with world leaders, and made bold promises about equity, reform, and diplomacy. In the eyes of her supporters, she was stepping up. She was laying the foundation for her own political legacy, and perhaps positioning herself for something even bigger, possibly a presidential run in the near future. Her speeches were measured, her appearances carefully orchestrated, and her public image closely managed. She was often portrayed as the next-generation leader, intelligent, diverse, and ready to break more barriers. But for Donald Trump, watching all of this unfold from the sidelines, it was a very different picture. He saw Kamala Harris not as a leader, but as a symbol of everything he believed was wrong with the Biden administration. From the moment she was appointed to lead the immigration task force, Trump publicly blasted her efforts, claiming she had no plan and no results. He often referred to the southern border crisis as the Harris disaster and said her leadership lacked strength and accountability. He didn't stop there. During press briefings and rallies, he took jabs at her foreign trips, accusing her of embarrassing the nation on the world stage. He called her soft on China, weak on crime, and claimed she avoided direct confrontation with the real issues facing Americans. On several occasions, he even suggested that she, not Biden, was calling the shots behind the scenes, feeding into a narrative that Harris had outsized influence during Biden's later years in office, especially as concerns about his health began to circulate more publicly. And then came the election. Trump made his return. With his victory, many expected him to focus on economic policy, military strength, and national security. But those who knew him well understood that Trump doesn't forget. And he doesn't forgive. The moment he stepped back into the Oval Office, it was clear that his second term wouldn't be about playing nice, it would be about making bold moves and settling unfinished business. True to form, he wasted no time. Within days of taking office, whispers began leaking from behind closed doors. Trump's team, under his new Attorney General, had quietly greenlit a federal review into several initiatives spearheaded by Harris during her time in office. Officially, it was called a routine performance audit of the prior administration's immigration and foreign aid programs. But everyone knew it was more than that. The investigation was focused specifically on policies Harris had led, including foreign aid disbursements to Central America, her handling of asylum policies, and federal spending on immigration shelters. Behind the scenes, a special unit was formed to go through documents, emails, financial records, and policy memos tied to Harris's office. They began analyzing decisions made during her trips to Guatemala and Mexico, where she pledged aid packages in return for cooperation on border control. Conservative media picked up on the story instantly, labeling it Harrisgate, and claiming that taxpayer dollars had been mismanaged or used without proper congressional oversight. In the official statement released by the Trump administration, the language was measured, but firm. It stated that all departments would be held to a new standard of transparency and that past officials would not be shielded from accountability simply because their terms had ended. Though her name wasn't mentioned in the written documents, insiders confirmed what many suspected: Kamala Harris was the key figure under scrutiny. As news of the investigation broke, Democrats reacted with fury. Several lawmakers condemned the move as politically motivated, calling it an attempt to discredit a potential 2028 presidential candidate before she had even announced her intentions. But Trump's team doubled down, insisting that this wasn't personal, it was about justice and responsibility. Kamala Harris, for her part, maintained her composure in public. But sources close to her described the mood inside her inner circle as tense and defiant. She was reportedly preparing a detailed response to the allegations, along with a legal team ready to defend her record. Harris told her allies that she would not be intimidated and would not allow Trump's tactics to rewrite her legacy. But the message from Trump's administration was clear. This wasn't just about policy, it was about power. Trump had returned to office with a mission, and Kamala Harris, once considered untouchable, was now at the center of one of the most high-profile political confrontations of the modern era. And it was only just beginning. Just days after Donald Trump stepped back into the Oval Office, his administration dropped a political bombshell that rattled Washington. In a surprise press briefing, the White House announced a sweeping federal audit into the immigration policies of the previous administration, many of which had been directly overseen by former Vice President Kamala Harris. This wasn't a quiet behind-the-scenes review. It was a full-scale investigation. A newly appointed task force, led by Trump's hardline Attorney General, was given authority to dig into billions of dollars in federal spending, analyze Harris's international diplomatic trips, and scrutinize controversial decisions made under her watch. The official statement framed the move as a necessary measure for national security and fiscal accountability. "The American people deserve answers," said the Attorney General. "Our mission is simple: follow the money, follow the decisions, and ensure that no one, regardless of their position, is above the law." Insiders described the task force as one of the most aggressive investigative bodies assembled in years. It included prosecutors, federal auditors, intelligence analysts, and policy experts. The directive was clear: trace the flow of government funds tied to immigration reform, evaluate the effectiveness of Harris-backed initiatives, and determine whether there were any violations of federal law, misuse of resources, or breaches of protocol. One senior official, speaking anonymously to the press, gave a statement that would be echoed across headlines within hours. "This isn't about revenge. This is about restoring transparency and exposing the truth." But not everyone believed that. Almost immediately, political opponents and Democratic lawmakers pushed back. They accused Trump of using his office to settle old political scores. Prominent senators and representatives labeled the investigation as a witch hunt, designed not to seek justice but to discredit a rising star in the Democratic Party. Civil rights organizations joined the criticism, warning that weaponizing the justice system against political rivals was a dangerous precedent. Media outlets on both sides of the aisle jumped into the fray. Conservative platforms celebrated the audit as a long overdue accountability measure, while liberal networks blasted it as political theater. Pundits debated endlessly on nightly panels, questioning both the legality and the ethics of the investigation. Despite the growing backlash, the probe didn't slow down. In fact, it gained speed. Subpoenas were issued. Former White House aides and department heads were called in for questioning. Financial records tied to Harris's trips to Central and South America were requested. Internal memos, policy drafts, and communications between Harris's office and federal agencies were now under a microscope. The headlines came daily, sometimes hourly. Task force targets $2 billion in foreign aid allocated by Harris. Emails reveal tensions over immigration strategy in former VP's office. Kamala Harris under federal review. What does it mean for 2028? While the country watched this political storm intensify, Kamala Harris remained mostly out of the spotlight. Since the election loss, she had been relatively quiet, avoiding the cameras, skipping interviews, and keeping a low profile. Her absence only fueled speculation. Was she planning a comeback? Was she consulting legal teams? Or was she preparing for a fight? Then, after weeks of silence, Kamala Harris made her move. Standing before a packed press room, she delivered one of the most fiery and emotional speeches of her career. Dressed in sharp navy blue, eyes steady, she didn't mince words. "I have nothing to hide," she said firmly. "This is not about justice, this is about intimidation. This is an abuse of power, plain and simple. We should be investigating how to fix the immigration system, not trying to destroy people who tried to reform it." The room fell silent. She went on to defend her work during the Biden administration, citing measurable progress on diplomatic relations, improved immigration processing, and humanitarian aid. She accused the Trump administration of ignoring the complexity of the issues and instead choosing to attack individuals for political gain. The response was immediate. Her supporters praised the speech as courageous and powerful. Clips of her words went viral across platforms. Democratic leaders rallied behind her, stating that she had become a symbol of resistance against political persecution. Even some moderate voices began expressing concern that the audit was turning into a public spectacle more than a legitimate review. But Trump wasn't finished. That same evening, he took to the national stage in a televised interview. Sitting confidently with one of his favorite network hosts, he dismissed Harris's speech as dramatic nonsense and doubled down on the investigation. "If she's got nothing to hide, then she has nothing to worry about," he said. "This isn't a reality show. This is real life. Billions of dollars disappeared under her watch. The people deserve to know what happened." He ended the segment with a smile and a chilling promise. "This is just the beginning." Behind the scenes, tensions within the federal government continued to rise. While the investigation had yet to produce any formal charges or findings, the political damage was already unfolding. Harris's reputation was under siege. Her political future, once considered promising, was now deeply uncertain. But her resolve, according to sources close to her, remained unshaken. In the eyes of the public, this was no longer just about immigration. It had become a full-scale war between two of the most powerful political figures in modern American history. And as both sides dug in, the country braced for what was still to come. Beyond the investigations and headline-grabbing audits, Donald Trump was executing a far more direct and aggressive strategy, one designed to not only reverse the policies of the past 4 years, but to systematically dismantle Kamala Harris's political legacy. Every move was deliberate. Every announcement, every policy change, and every media appearance pointed to a larger plan: eliminate her influence and credibility at every level. One of Trump's first targets was border security. Within days of being sworn in, he signed executive orders reinstating funding for his infamous border wall, an initiative that had been halted and partially dismantled during the Biden-Harris administration. But Trump didn't stop at rebuilding the wall. He moved to completely dismantle key immigration programs championed by Harris during her vice presidency. These included asylum expansion programs, humanitarian entry initiatives, and foreign aid-based border diplomacy efforts. Trump called them failures, accusing Harris of weakening the nation's defenses, encouraging illegal immigration, and wasting billions in taxpayer money. In a series of fiery speeches and online posts, Trump repeated the message: our borders were never more open, our security never more at risk than under Kamala Harris. That ends now. He reintroduced strict detention protocols, ramped up ICE operations, and publicly called for the removal of what he called soft policies born in the Harris era. Within weeks, images of construction crews rebuilding wall sections appeared across media channels, while thousands of asylum cases under review were frozen or overturned. Critics were outraged, but Trump's base applauded what they saw as a return to law and order. Trump's next focus was foreign policy, specifically, tearing down the diplomatic efforts that had been led or influenced by Kamala Harris during her time in office. During the Biden administration, Harris had negotiated several international agreements aimed at stabilizing Central American nations in an effort to curb migration at the source. These included aid packages, development deals, and multilateral collaborations with countries like Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. Harris had framed them as long-term solutions, addressing the root causes of migration. But Trump took a sledgehammer to those deals. Declaring that they put America last, he ordered an immediate freeze on all related foreign aid. He canceled joint development projects, withdrew from multilateral regional conferences, and demanded new terms that favored American economic and security interests. "We don't pay other countries to solve our problems," Trump declared in a primetime address. "We solve them ourselves." Diplomats from Latin America expressed frustration, with some warning of rising instability. But for Trump, the optics were everything. Pulling out of these agreements wasn't just about policy, it was a public rejection of Harris's work on the world stage. He was erasing her signature efforts piece by piece, ensuring her foreign policy track record could be portrayed as naive, ineffective, and ultimately damaging to American interests. But perhaps the most calculated move came through Trump's use of the media. In the weeks following his return to power, Trump launched an aggressive media campaign aimed at reshaping the national narrative around Kamala Harris. He sat for exclusive interviews with major networks, carefully chosen for maximum reach among both conservative and moderate viewers. In these appearances, Trump didn't just speak about his plans, he shared insider details and previously undisclosed conflicts from the Biden-Harris years. He claimed there were deep divisions between Biden and Harris, citing internal memos and cabinet disagreements. He hinted at classified briefings in which Harris allegedly downplayed security risks or pushed foreign policy positions that clashed with military intelligence. Without directly leaking classified materials, Trump danced on the edge, feeding the public just enough to ignite speculation. One quote in particular stirred the pot. "You'd be shocked to learn how often the vice president contradicted her own administration behind closed doors. It was chaos. Real chaos." Cable news channels dissected every word. Clips of Trump's interviews went viral. Panel discussions dominated the evening lineups. Every soundbite served to push one message: Kamala Harris was not the steady, competent leader she appeared to be. She was impulsive, divisive, and, according to Trump, dangerously unqualified. These media appearances weren't random. They were part of a larger communication strategy designed to tarnish Harris's image before she could even consider re-entering the political arena. Behind closed doors, insiders whispered of Trump's real goal, not just to undo her work, but to prevent her from becoming a serious contender in 2028. Had learned how to use every tool, policy, media, influence, and public opinion, to his advantage. The campaign to erase Kamala Harris's legacy had begun. But it wasn't just about the past. It was a calculated strike aimed directly at the future. As Trump's actions continue to send shockwaves through Washington, speculation grows louder by the day. The Capitol is buzzing, political circles are whispering, and the media is laser-focused on one burning question: what will Kamala Harris do now? For the past few weeks, she has watched as her record is picked apart, her legacy challenged, and her name dragged into the center of a firestorm. Her immigration efforts have been labeled as failures, her foreign diplomacy deals reversed, and her policies systematically dismantled one by one. To some, it seems like her political career is being erased in real time. But those close to Harris say she's not defeated, she's calculating her next move. Inside Democratic circles, there's growing belief that Harris may be preparing for a major political comeback. Despite the investigations, despite the media frenzy, and despite Trump's aggressive agenda, she still holds significant influence within the party. Her base remains energized. Progressive leaders continue to support her. And the symbolic weight of her being the first female vice president, Black and South Asian at that, still resonates deeply with millions of Americans. Sources say Harris has begun reaching out to key allies. She's quietly rebuilding networks, reactivating donor pipelines, and strategizing behind the scenes. Some believe she's planning to emerge stronger, reframing herself not as a victim of political warfare, but as a fighter who stood her ground in the face of unprecedented attacks. Her press conference defending her record wasn't just a response, it may have been the first strike in a larger campaign to reclaim her image. However, not everyone believes she'll return to the political arena. Some close observers believe the toll of recent events may push her in a different direction entirely. There's talk that Harris may step away from politics, at least temporarily, focusing instead on activism, public speaking, and advocacy work. Her voice still carries weight on issues like civil rights, reproductive freedom, immigration reform, and climate justice, issues she championed both in the Senate and as vice president. Her departure from frontline politics wouldn't mean silence. It would mean influence from another angle. A return to grassroots leadership. A role in shaping public opinion outside of office, possibly even preparing for a long-term re-entry when the political landscape shifts again. Whatever path Harris ultimately chooses, one thing is clear: Donald Trump's post-election actions weren't just about policy, they were deeply personal and politically calculated. His targeting of Kamala Harris sent a chilling and undeniable message, not only to her, but to every rival and opponent who challenged him in the past 4 years. No one is off limits. No position is safe. And no legacy is untouchable. Trump's return to the White House wasn't just another political cycle resetting. It marked a turning point. A new phase. A power shift that has already altered the direction of national policy and set the tone for the next 4 years, and perhaps beyond. To his supporters, Trump's aggressive steps are seen as necessary corrections, bold decisions made to undo what they call the chaos of the previous administration. To his critics, these moves represent a dangerous overreach, a weaponization of presidential authority, and a chilling preview of a presidency driven by revenge. But regardless of perspective, one undeniable fact remains: Trump is back in power. And he's not pulling any punches. Every day brings a new move. A new headline. A new escalation. Whether through legal action, media messaging, or executive orders, he's proving that this presidency will not be a quiet one. His political instincts are sharp, his strategy ruthless, and his goal crystal clear: to shape the narrative, erase his rivals, and control the future. Kamala Harris, once seen as a rising Democratic star and potential future president, now finds herself in the middle of this maelstrom. Her next steps will not only determine her own future, they may shape the future of the Democratic Party itself. And for millions of Americans watching from every corner of the country, this unfolding political drama is more than just a clash of personalities. It's a battle of ideologies. A war of visions. One that represents the deep divide running through the heart of the nation. This isn't just about Trump versus Harris. It's about two different directions for America. Two competing definitions of leadership. Two clashing narratives of who holds power and how it should be used. As the dust continues to swirl, all eyes remain on Washington. Harris may return to the spotlight. Trump may continue tightening his grip. Or the landscape may shift again in ways no one can yet predict. But one thing is certain: this is far from over. Every word, every decision, every move is now part of a much larger story, a story that will shape the next election, define the next generation of leaders, and influence the course of American history for years to come. Stay tuned. Because the storm has only just begun. If you found this story eye-opening, make sure to hit that like button, it really helps us out. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell icon so you never miss an update on the stories that matter.